George Russell is not being beaten because he forgot how to drive. He is being beaten because the fastest Mercedes in years may not actually be built for him. And that changes everything. Because Kimi Antonelli is not just ahead in the championship. He has won 5 races in a row, built a 68-point lead, and made the same car look effortless, while Russell says nothing is clicking. That is the detail everyone should be worried about. Not the points. Not the pressure. The feeling. Because when one driver says the car does not suit his natural style, and the other driver keeps winning with it, Mercedes has a problem bigger than a rivalry. It has a car that may already be choosing its future. And Barcelona could expose the truth. If Russell suddenly finds the pace, the fight is alive again. But if Antonelli beats him there, at the track where Mercedes already saw him match Russell in testing, then the answer becomes brutal. Russell is not just chasing Antonelli. He is chasing a version of the Mercedes that speaks Kimi's language better than his own. Subscribe to the channel. At the beginning of the season, George Russell looked like the safest bet in Formula 1. Not because the car was slow. Not because Mercedes was rebuilding. But because everything around him finally seemed ready to become his. Lewis Hamilton had left for Ferrari, and that single move changed the entire emotional structure of Mercedes. For years, Hamilton had been more than a driver there. He was the standard. The history. The name that defined what winning looked like inside that team. So when he walked away, the question became unavoidable. Who leads Mercedes now? And the answer seemed obvious. George Russell. He had the experience. He had the patience. He had the relationship with the engineers. He had already lived through the pressure of being compared to greatness, and he had survived it. He was 28 years old, in his prime, with the fastest car Mercedes had produced for the new era. The timing looked perfect. And that is what makes the collapse so hard to understand. Because Russell did not begin the season like a driver in trouble. He began it like a driver taking control. Australia was the proof. A win in the opening race. A clean statement. A result that made the entire Mercedes plan look stable. The team had lost Hamilton, but it had not lost direction. Russell was there. Russell was ready. Russell was the leader. Then he won the China sprint race, and the story became even stronger. This was not a driver waiting for confidence. This was not a driver needing permission. This was a driver who looked prepared to turn Mercedes into his team. But hidden underneath that perfect opening was the first sign of the problem. Because Kimi Antonelli was already too close. Not close in the way a young teammate looks promising. Close in the way that changes the temperature inside a garage. The first warning came before the season even started, during the January shakedown at Barcelona. Mercedes completed more than 500 laps across 5 days with very few reliability issues. That mattered, because 2026 was not a normal regulation change. The cars had changed in a fundamental way. The power units demanded more from the electrical side. The aerodynamic systems were active. The car was not just faster or slower than before. It behaved differently. For some drivers, a new car is like a new pair of gloves. It takes time before it feels natural. For Antonelli, the fit looked immediate. During that test, he was separated from Russell by only a few tenths. Then, on one day, Antonelli went fastest. 1 minute, 17.362 seconds. Just over 2 tenths ahead of Russell. That number might sound small, but in Formula 1, 2 tenths can change careers. 2 tenths can decide who gets priority in development. 2 tenths can change how engineers listen. 2 tenths can turn a rookie from a project into a threat. Russell responded the next day with the fastest lap of the week, 1 minute, 16.445 seconds. So at the time, Mercedes could tell itself the balance was healthy. Russell still had the top pace. Antonelli was pushing him. The future was fast, but the present was still in control. That was the comfortable interpretation. But looking back, Barcelona testing now feels like the first clue that something deeper was forming. Because Antonelli was not learning the W17 slowly. He was connecting with it quickly. And that connection has become the central issue of Russell's season. The Mercedes W17 is not a simple car to understand. No modern Formula 1 car is simple, but this one belongs to a new generation. More electrical power. More energy management. Active aerodynamics. Different modes for different parts of the lap. A car that does not just sit under the driver, but constantly asks the driver to adapt. Imagine trying to run at full speed while the floor beneath you changes texture every few steps. Sometimes it grips. Sometimes it slides. Sometimes it wants you to push. Sometimes it punishes you for pushing too early. That is what these new cars demand. The driver must feel the car changing before it costs lap time. And that is where Antonelli has looked almost unnatural. He has not looked like a teenager trying to decode the machine. He has looked like he already knows what it wants. This is the real beginning of Russell's problem. Because Russell's issue is not that he cannot drive a fast car. He can. His issue may be that the fastest version of this Mercedes is asking for instincts that do not fully match his own. That sounds subtle. But at this level, subtle is everything. A driver does not lose half a second because he suddenly becomes untalented. He loses small pieces. A fraction on corner entry. A fraction because the front does not bite exactly when he expects it. A fraction because he cannot open the steering as early. A fraction because he has to wait one heartbeat longer before trusting the throttle. One heartbeat sounds tiny. In Formula One, it is a gap. That is why Russell's own words matter so much. After the season began slipping away, he did not only talk about bad luck. He did not only talk about penalties. He admitted something much more revealing. His driving style was not working with the car. That sentence is the key to the whole story. Because a driver's style is not just preference. It is muscle memory. It is instinct. It is the way his hands, feet, eyes, and confidence work together before he has time to think. Some drivers need a car that turns sharply the moment they ask. Some need a rear end that stays calm under pressure. Some create lap time by attacking the brake zone. Some create it by carrying speed smoothly through the middle of the corner. Russell has spent years becoming one kind of elite driver. But the W17 may be rewarding another kind of elite driver. And Antonelli may be exactly that. That is the problem nobody can fix with a motivational speech. You cannot simply tell a driver to feel the car differently. You cannot tell him to trust something his body does not trust. You can adjust setup. You can change balance. You can study data. You can compare traces. But when the natural connection is missing, everything becomes harder. And when the other driver has that connection, everything becomes more painful. Because Antonelli's success removes Russell's protection. If both Mercedes drivers were struggling, the team would blame the car. If both were inconsistent, Mercedes would search for a common weakness. But Antonelli is winning. Not once. Not twice. 5 races in a row. That changes the conversation. Now the car is not the obvious problem. Russell is. At least, that is how the outside world sees it. And that is why this situation is so dangerous for his confidence. When a driver is beaten by a rival team, he can separate himself from the result. The Ferrari was faster. The Red Bull had better tire life. The strategy went wrong. But when the other car is identical, the comparison becomes intimate. Same team. Same engine. Same basic machine. Same opportunity. Different outcome. There is nowhere comfortable to hide. And every time Antonelli wins, the pressure moves closer to Russell. Not as a dramatic explosion. As a slow tightening. A question after qualifying. A look across the garage. A meeting where Antonelli's feedback suddenly carries more weight. A headline asking whether Mercedes has already found its next leader. That is how a rivalry begins to change a team. Not because anyone says the word number one. Because everyone starts behaving as if the data is pulling them in one direction. Russell was supposed to be the reference point for the W17. But what happens if the car's best performances keep coming from Antonelli? What happens if the engineers start to believe the fastest path forward is the one Kimi naturally understands? What happens if helping Russell means moving the car away from the version that is currently winning? That is the impossible Mercedes question. And it is why the real reason Russell cannot match Antonelli's pace is bigger than one driver. Mercedes may have built a brilliant car. But brilliant for whom? That question is what turns this from a form slump into a crisis. Because Russell can recover from bad luck. He can recover from a poor weekend. He can recover from a penalty, a strategy mistake, even a mechanical retirement. But if the fastest Mercedes is fundamentally more natural for Antonelli, then Russell is fighting something far harder. He is fighting the direction of development. He is fighting the internal logic of the team. He is fighting the possibility that every upgrade designed to make the car faster may also make it more Kimi. And that is where Barcelona becomes so important. Because Barcelona is not a random circuit. It is where the first clues appeared. It is where Mercedes saw Antonelli match Russell before the world was paying attention. It is where the car completed huge mileage and showed its strength. It is also a circuit that reveals balance better than almost anywhere else. Long corners. Fast direction changes. A demanding middle sector. A track where aerodynamic stability matters, and where a driver must trust the car through loaded corners again and again. If the W17 speaks your language, Barcelona can feel beautiful. If it does not, Barcelona can expose you. That is why this first block matters. Because the real reason Russell cannot match Antonelli's pace did not appear suddenly in Monaco, or Canada, or after one bad qualifying session. It may have been there from the beginning. In the way Antonelli adapted. in the way the car rewarded him, in the way Russell could still produce speed, but seemed to need more effort to reach it. And effort is dangerous in Formula One. Because the best drivers make speed look like it arrives naturally. When it takes too much effort, mistakes appear. Tires suffer. Confidence fades. Radio messages become heavier. A weekend that should feel controlled begins to feel like a search. And Russell has been searching while Antonelli has been winning. That is the emotional difference between them right now. One driver is trying to rediscover the connection. The other is using it to build a championship lead. So before anyone says Russell is finished, they should understand the deeper truth. This is not simply about talent. It is not simply about age. It is not simply about pressure. It is about fit, driver and machine, instinct and response, confidence and reward. Antonelli has made the W17 look like an extension of himself. Russell has made it sound like a puzzle he is still trying to solve. And at this level, that difference can decide everything. Because Formula One does not wait for a driver to become comfortable. It does not pause while he adjusts his instincts. It does not protect the driver who was supposed to lead. The stopwatch only asks one question. Who can make this car fast right now? And so far, the answer has been Kimi Antonelli. That is why Russell's battle is more urgent than it looks. He is not just trying to beat a teenager. He is trying to prove that the fastest version of Mercedes can still belong to him. Then Canada exposed the most painful part of the whole Russell problem. Because Canada did not prove he was too slow. It proved something almost worse. It proved he could fight Antonelli and still leave with nothing. For 30 laps, Russell had exactly what he needed. No theory. No excuse. No hidden data that fans could not see. Just two Mercedes cars fighting at the front, lap after lap, with the championship pressure growing every time they crossed the line. This was the kind of moment Russell needed desperately. Because when your teammate is winning too often, you do not change the story by explaining what went wrong. You change it by beating him. Directly. Publicly. When everyone is watching. And for a while, Russell looked capable of doing exactly that. He was not lost. He was not being dropped. He was not driving like a man who had accepted the season was moving away from him. He was there, in the fight, matching Antonelli blow for blow. That matters. Because it tells us the pace difference is not some simple story where Antonelli is perfect and Russell has disappeared. Russell still has speed. He still has racekraft. He still has the ability to pressure the driver across the garage. But Formula One is cruel because being close is not the same as winning. And Canada made that cruelty visible. A sudden power cut ended Russell's race while he was fighting for the lead. The car stopped giving him the chance to finish the argument. Antonelli inherited the victory. And the championship gap jumped to 43 points. That is the kind of result that can damage a driver in two different ways. First, it damages the scoreboard. That part is obvious. Points disappear. The rival pulls away. The comeback becomes harder. But the second damage is quieter and far more dangerous. It damages belief. Because Russell did not leave Canada thinking, I was nowhere. He left thinking, I could have changed everything. And that kind of thought can follow a driver into the next race. What if the car had held together? What if the power had stayed alive? What if the battle had reached the final laps? What if the result had gone the other way? Those questions sound harmless from the outside. Inside a title fight, they are poison. Because they keep a driver attached to a version of the season that never happened. And while Russell was left with the what-ifs, Antonelli left with the only thing Formula One truly rewards.